out your objective. Don't let anything stand in your way.
What's up, agents? How y'all doing? Hope everybody's hanging in there, being as safe as you guys need to be. All right, everybody, strap in, because today we are going back to the comprehensive build guide series. We recently released the comprehensive medic builds, and now today we are going to go over the sniper turret build. And why this one is so much fun is quite a while ago, and I wish I would have saved the comment, somebody literally wrote back in the old video that we don't need this. Nobody wants this build. There's actual sniper builds, so nobody needs this. And I think he was just mad because he got taken out in the DZ by some sniper turrets a couple times. That being said, I want to make sure to cover both PvE and PvP variations. While this does take a little bit of management, this is one of the highest damage outputs, both in burst damage as well as sustained damage, that you could put out with any skill build in the game. Of course, it does take some micromanagement, and you really have to know how to be able to make the build work, but the damage numbers do not lie. All right, agents, before we jump on in here, a like would be greatly appreciated if you guys learn anything new today or you get any entertainment out of this. Hopefully by the end of the video, I will have earned your guys subscriptions. The best thing you could do to help my channel will be to share this video. If you guys see anything you do differently, anything you really enjoy, or anything you'd like to see upcoming here in the future, leave a comment down below. All right, agents, let's get into the sniper turret. All right, the first thing we're going to do is talk about the specializations. We're going to go with the technician for a few very specific reasons. Number one, it gives us the amp. This will give us +1 skill tier, which will allow us to use either one armor core or one weapon core without dropping down to skill tier 5. This will maintain skill tier 6. What I tend to do is choose for the armor core, but if you want to go with weapon damage, by all means. Now, another reason to use this is so that in either PvE or PvP, we cannot be disrupted or shocked due to the Faraday field. We will net ourselves an additional 10% skill damage from the overclocked CPU, and we get access to the Link laser pointer, which on a large variety of weapons will allow us to pulse targets simply by aiming at them. This will allow us to keep track of targets easier. And if you or any teammates happen to be using a spotter perk or the flatline perk or both, this of course will benefit that. On a lesser note, you will get access to the dismantling perk. This in PvE will help out with robotics and basically any sort of inorganic material. Specifically in PvP, this will help you to take out the opponent's skills, whether it's their turret, their drone, or a shield. So this can help to do some bonus damage there. Lastly, we need to note that the technician will give us access to the Artificer Hive. All right, guys, so even though we are running with skill builds, one of the most important things is the weapons that we're going to use. Now, as I always say, you want to use whatever weapons you feel the most comfortable with. You want to use what you enjoy the most. However, not all weapons and not all talents are created equal, so I'm going to go into what I think will get you the best bang for the buck and ultimately net you the most damage, either for sustain or for burst damage. And, well, let me explain what I mean. So for our primary weapon, if we want more sustained damage, we will go for the capacitor. Not only will this ramp up to 40 stacks, which will give us 60% additional skill damage. It takes a long time for those stacks to decay. As well, we get 7.5% weapon damage for every utility core we have. Since I do like running an armor core, that will give us 5. That nets us 37.5% bonus weapon damage on top of the potential 60% bonus skill damage. For most PvE situations, I will choose to go with the capacitor. Now, as an alternative in PvP, where you don't have the luxury of getting those stacks up, I would go for the test subject. This will give you the perfect in sync. This will allow you to proc the 40% bonus almost instantaneously. While not nearly as much of a damage bonus as the capacitor, this will give you enough to generally body shot any agent, single shot, and then follow up with that little bit of bonus damage after the damage gating. Now, for our secondary, you could of course run the capacitor and the test subject. They're both auto rifles. That's not smart for the damage, for the ammo consumption. As well, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense utility-wise. What I recommend for your secondary is either to go with something like the stage left to give you the perfect sledgehammer. This will allow you to toss a grenade at the enemies and proc that 40% bonus damage to armor, which will be multiplicative, as well as the 30% movement speed. The downside is sniper turret does not gain damage from damage to armor, so this will not actually benefit the damage to your sniper turret, but it will benefit teammates. Alternatively, for your secondary weapon, instead of sledgehammer, you could go with any full auto weapon or any weapon you really dig that gives future perfect. So I'd recommend something like an assault rifle or an LMG with future perfect on it to proc that. Alternatively, what you may do is just go with something like I go with the backup boomstick, future perfect on that bad boy. Basically I either want future perfect, I want a combination of future perfect and sledgehammer. That's what it comes down to. Try to get that combo, and then either the capacitor for maximum sustained damage or the test subject. You could also go with the harmony if you guys like using rifles over auto rifles. I like using the assault rifle better, so that's what I go with. But either way, perfect in sync will get you a nice burst damage and generally enough to take down agents. That's really it for the weapons. If you have any offshoots, anything that you particularly like using, go ahead and leave a comment down below as to why you choose anything else over these variations. All right, agents, next we'll talk about the gear and then the talents. So for the gear, we're actually going to be using brand sets, not gear sets. We'll be using brand sets in this. We're going to start out every variation that we're going to be using. We're going to run with 3 pieces of Empress International. This will give us the 10% bonus skill health for the first tier. Doesn't do us a whole lot of good, but the second piece will give us 10% skill damage, and the third piece will net us 10% skill efficiency. So this will, of course, add to our skill duration, our skill damage, our skill haste, and is just an overall benefit. I think it also adds to skill health, which doesn't really matter so much. Also, in every variation, we are going to be running with 1 piece of Wyvern. If you decide to not use the waveform, you could go with the claws out holster. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter where you put what pieces, with the exception of the 1-piece Hana U. So the Wyvern will give you the 10% skill damage. We will go with the Hana U backpack in almost every variation of this. We'll talk about a couple times that we'll stray from that. But for the most part, you'll be using the Force Multiplier. This will give us 10% skill haste. Now that leaves 1 extra piece available. In most practical situations, that 1 extra piece will be filled with either a second Hana U piece to give us 10% bonus skill damage. That'll be an innate static damage bonus from that second piece of Hana U. Or the waveform holster, which will net us up to 30% bonus skill damage for the turret, and will go all the way down to 0. So that is the standard variations. I will note real quick, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but you could also swap in Memento and Acostas. Both of those could be used to great effect if you want to micromanage your build and your playstyle a little bit more. For the talents, we will first talk about the chest talents. So the main talent, as I'm sure everybody can guess, will be Glass Cannon. Of course, this will get us the 25% multiplier. Just behind that, and very effective and the safer route, you could go with kinetic momentum. This will get you an additive 30% bonus skill damage. And in most situations where we're playing this, you can use that to great effect. You just can't use the quick deploy, redeploy trick to get your turret to fire a little bit faster, but you don't need to, and it will do almost as much damage as glass cannon. But if you want to use kinetic momentum, you get rid of the liability of that bonus 50% bonus damage you take. Two other things to note: you could go with spotter. Since we're using technician, everything you aim at, you will pulse, and that means spotter will do that multiplicative 15% bonus damage to both your weapon and your skill damage, so that will buff you ubiquitously. And lastly, I will mention that the Caesar's Guard with the perfectly skilled is an option. It doesn't add any DPS, but it can help to make sure if you're running solo that you always have your turret available. Basically, you could set up your turret fire until you proc perfectly skilled. You can move, and you know as soon as you blow your turret up, you're immediately going to have a new one back. That's the last we're really going to talk about the Caesar's Guard, because it's really not of great benefit to the build. Now, the backpack, well, you're either going to be using perfect combined arms from the force multiplier. This will give us that 30% damage bonus. Just behind that, you have the standard combined arms or tech support. Both of these give 25% bonus. These can be totally interchanged depending on your playstyle and how it's working out for you. If you're not having any problems getting kills, and so it's easy for you to maintain that tech support bonus, great, do that. It's obviously 20 seconds is a lot easier to get another kill and keep that procced. If you're having a hard time killing guys, or say you're at the end of Union District Arena where maybe there's just one big boss, swap over to standard combined arms so you can at least proc that 25% damage bonus. But it really doesn't matter. Whatever works better for your playstyle at any given point. The one other thing that we will note is that opportunistic is possibly something you could use. If you're using maybe the lefty shotgun or the mop, you could use that to proc the opportunistic. This would be a 10% multiplier. Unfortunately, it ends up doing a little bit less damage than just going with standard tech support or perfect combined arms. And of course, the force multiplier will do more damage than that. As I've noted, in the backpack slot, you may end up ultimately going with the Memento or Acostas, and those are both totally legit. Just take a little bit more micromanaging of your build. So the attributes, obviously we're going to have skill damage as the primary attribute everywhere. And secondarily, you either want skill haste or armor regen per second. I prefer a little bit of both. We want to make sure that we can have a good skill cooldown. We also want to make sure that we have some form of healing, and I don't want to have to count on the mop because I just want to be able to swap it up. Theoretically, you could have a mop with Sledgehammer as your secondary, or a mop with Future Perfect, and that would be totally legit. So do keep that in mind. It's just, however you want to play it. So after the attributes, we have mods. You got 3 mod slots in this build. I'd probably just go with skill haste till you feel comfortable with your cooldown, and then if you feel comfortable and you have enough slots, throw some armor on kill there just to make sure you got a little bit extra healing of any sort. Alright guys, so now we got to talk about the skills. Well, obviously we are going to be using the sniper turret. We have the damage mod on it, skill haste mod on it. So 15 shots, we're going to average depending on your expertise level and all this, expect to see between 3 million and 3.3 million as your base damage on paper. I think as we're running this, I think we're at 3.29. I still have 5 expertise levels I could crank up, so 5% more damage I could get out of this. So our PvP damage, we expect to see between 3 and 3.3 million. And for your PvP damage, you're expecting to see between 900,000 to about 1.1 million. Right now, we're sitting at about 1.05 million. And as you guys will see very easily, we will be able to do enough damage to body shot almost any single agent in the Dark Zone who doesn't have Unbreakable on. Now, the secondary skill. To maximize our damage, of course, we are going to be going with the Artificer Hive, which is only available to us because of the Technician. This is single-handedly the largest buff we're going to get at 70 to 80% damage bonus. So, Artificer Hive is huge. So the Artificer Hive will have about 32 charges on it, and it will buff us at skill tier 6 70% damage. That buff will last 10 seconds. I quickly want to talk about overcharging. I think this is the appropriate time. Overcharge basically kicks us up one extra skill tier. Our sniper turret technically does not gain any bonus damage when we overcharge the turret. However, the Artificer Hive, when overcharged, goes from buff amount 700% to 800% charge efficiency, which equates to, instead of a 70% damage bonus, an 80% damage bonus. So we do bonus damage. So we do bonus damage with our turret when overcharged indirectly through the Artificer Hive. On top of that, we do get a bonus to the sniper turret. Yeah, we don't do any bonus damage, but we double our rate of fire. So effectively, we do double our DPS. Here's the clutch part though. In PvP, this can definitely be the difference of you living, dying, taking out an entire team. That duration of overcharge, you're allowed to fire off much faster than most agents will be expecting you to be able to fire. So, overcharge, while on paper, it does not show that it directly adds to the damage of the turret. You could substantially increase your burst damage during an overcharge. Now, quickly, let's talk about some other skills if you do not want to use the Artificer Hive. Say you're running in a team in the DZ, and you got somebody else running the Artificer, you don't need to run it. A great idea would be to run the Stinger Hive. That way you can leave a Stinger Hive in a location behind you, and instead of having to have a rear guard to watch you, you will have something that A, can do good damage against somebody sneaking up on you, plus it'll let you know. You'll immediately see that your Stinger charges are going down, you know something's happening, and you know that you need to pay attention to whatever area the Stinger Hive is covering. Now, another thing, if you're running solo, you may just want to run with the Striker Drone. Striker Drone is great. It'll do sustained damage while you're aiming. You can aim it at multiple targets, the target of your choice, and that's pretty hit. And you could also go for Cluster Seeker Mines if you wanted to have something to pull enemies out from cover. And if you're running with the Caesar's Guard chest piece, this is actually a really cool combo to run. The sniper turret and the cluster mines, because a lot of the time you won't be worrying about your sniper turret, but you want to get your cluster mines out so you can keep getting the enemies out from cover to blast them with the sniper turret to recycle and get your next round of cluster mines out. So those are the skills that I would use. There's other ones that could work to great effect, I suppose, but those are the ones that I would recommend. That's my opinion. Okay, really quick, guys, I want to talk about what different bonuses we're stacking up here, just so you guys can understand why we're able to hit these numbers we are. So the static numbers we have 10% skill damage from our SHD levels. We're maxed out there, there's 10% skill damage. We're expertise level 15, so that gives us 15% damage right there. We got overclock CPU from the technician, that's 10% bonus skill damage. We have 6 skill damage attributes, so that's going to give us 60% additional skill damage right there. Keep in mind, if you do use the Memento backpack, you will not have that bonus skill damage. You'll only have 60% skill damage in that particular case. You'll have the Wyvern, which will give you 10% skill damage, and the second and third piece of Empress International, which will give you 10% skill damage and 10% skill efficiency. So that will give us 125% skill damage right there. Then we can add proc damage. So we of course have the test subject, which is 40%, but for this calculation, max damage, you have the capacitor, 40 stacks will give you 60% skill damage. You have perfect combined arms, which will give us an additional 30% skill damage. And you have the artificer hive, which will give us 70% skill damage and 80% when overcharged. So that's 160 or 170% bonus skill damage that we could proc. So that's 125% plus 170%. That's 295% skill damage that we have right there. Now, we have to take into account we can either add one more piece of Hanayu for an additional 10% skill damage that would be static, or the waveform for that alternating current, which will give us between 0 and 30% bonus skill damage. Lastly, we need to take account whatever chest talent we're using. So you're either going to have glass cannon, which is going to give you the 1.25 multiplier, or we'll have kinetic momentum, which will add up to 30% additional skill damage. So with everything procced, before taking glass cannon into account, we will net ourselves 325% skill damage times the 25% multiplier from glass cannon will net us 406.25% skill damage. And because we're in overcharge, that means we're firing our turret twice as fast. So that's equivalent to 812.5% skill damage that we are netting when we stack everything up here. I know that's a lot of math, I know, but yeah. I do quickly want to touch on the two exotic backpacks that you could use. You could, of course, swap out the waveform and go with the Memento, swap out the waveform and perfect combined arms for the Memento. But this will give you the kills confirmed. It will give you a weapon core. It'll give you an armor core. It'll maintain that skill tier. And you'll be able to stack up a whole bunch of bonus weapon damage. You'll be able to stack up a bunch of armor regen. And you will be able to stack up a bunch of skill efficiency. So this will buff you in a bunch of ways. That's the long-term buffs. You also have the short-term buffs, which I think it's 10 seconds, will give you that extra weapon damage. It'll give you bonus armor, and it will give you even more skill efficiency. So if you're running solo or you're having an easy time killing enemies in a group and you can collect your trophies easily, Memento is a great piece of gear to use for this build. Unfortunately, it's just hard to test. It will come out to closely behind. It will almost do as much damage as the full high-end build without the waveform. If we go with the two pieces of Hanayu, the force multiplier, it'll do almost that much damage, but has a bunch of other great benefits. So I'd actually recommend that over the full high-end build. Additionally, Acostas can be used to really good effect, particularly in the Dark Zone, simply for the fact you don't have to get a kill to get the overcharge. You can be in a team, or however you're running it, you can be in the Dark Zone. You can be all set up, the Artificer Hive, your turret. You can have a weapon in your hand with Sledgehammer, and whether you hit or not, as soon as you know that you have contact, you can toss that grenade. It will automatically proc your overcharge, and your turret's firing twice as fast. I don't think many people are going to see that one coming. So having the ability to control exactly when you throw your overcharge could be of huge benefit. I don't see it working as well in PvE just because I think it'll get outshined by something like the Memento or just the damage output of the waveform. But in PvP, I think Acostas would be a solid contender. All right, guys, so let's just quickly talk about kind of gameplay mechanics for both PvE and then PvP. So PvE is really easy. You know, the AI is pretty predictable at this point. You just want to get yourself some high ground that's covered on as many sides as possible. You just proc your weapon and backpack talents and go to town. Now, you can use the quick fire method, you fire about 10% faster. And if you just simply put up your turret, fire as quick as you can, pick your turret back up, put it back up, fire as quick as possible. You can fire a little bit faster than leaving your turret out there. If you like micromanaging it, great. If you don't, not a big deal. The one big advantage that you do get by micromanaging and putting it up, taking it down, putting it up, taking it down, if you leave your turret up and you take 6 shots and then you take your turret back down, you're going to have a substantially longer cooldown. If you fire and you immediately grab your turret, you're never going to have more than a 2-second cooldown. This is where it kind of mitigates the need for a lot of skill haste in the mod section, or in your attributes for that matter. Now, of course, for max damage, you want to aim for the head, and this goes for PvE and PvP. There's nothing you can do to buff the headshot damage that isn't buffed just directly buffing body shot damage. Headshot damage will always be 200% of body shot damage. So you're always going to do twice as much damage to the head, period. So that makes it really easy. One other thing, if you're in a team, it's nice if you drop your Artificer Hive to help the team out. If you're running around by yourself, anytime you put the turret out, you don't have to worry about that 10-second cooldown. If I put the turret up and I take the shot, I pull it down, and 4 seconds later I have the turret up getting ready to take the next shot, the Artificer will proc and buff my turret every single time. So it does not have to wait the 10 seconds to rebuff the turret. Because the turret that I just put up doesn't have a buff, the Artificer Hive will immediately buff it. So you don't have to worry about that. It will keep you at that prime damage of the Artificer pretty much all the time if you have it on your back. One other thing in PvE, although we have actually found through direct testing, and it seems like it shouldn't be the case, but in no situation has using the sacrifice and normal combined arms, it yields the same exact damage as using standard glass cannon and perfect combined arms. So why would I ever use the perfect version when the damage output is going to be the same and I take 10% more damage? So if you're wondering why we haven't seen the sacrifice in any of this, that's why. Now, there are certain variations where you can use perfect combined arms and the sacrifice, but as it turns out, any different combinations that I tried out ultimately led to us doing less damage. So I do realize there are some circumstances that this could be what you run, but it's not practical when trying to hit the max damage, the pinnacle of the sniper build. If anybody has numbers to prove me wrong, absolutely include a link down below. I'd love to see it, and I will make an addendum to this video, anything that I have incorrect. Now it's time to talk about PvP. First of all, you guys are probably aware, and if you guys that do PvP know that the sniper turret's damage, it only puts out 32% of the damage that it puts out in PvE. So what that means, that's a good thing. We need to figure out how to get our body shot damage to do over 2.3 million. Because with the expertise levels and all that, agents are able to hit up to 2.3 and maybe even 2.4. So what we're doing and what we did, we got a turret that will hit between, and in fact, in most cases, 2.5 to 2.8 million damage body shots to agents. That means even with damage gating, you will be able to follow up with one shot of any weapon and put an agent down. That's it. That's all that matters. One exception to this, if you got somebody with Unbreakable, you're going to need to shot, and then finish. Now that second shot, depending on how quick it is after the damage gating from the first shot, it may or may not take them down. More than likely, you always want to follow through. But let's get into the mechanics and how are you going to be the most successful in PvP? All right, so how do you one-shot everything? Very much like the PvE variation, you're going to be hidden in an advantageous position. As soon as you have contact, you take the first shot when you have confirmed target. This will proc your perfect in sync. This will proc your perfect combined arms. You should then take your shot. This body shot should take the enemy down to 0 armor. The damage gating will then keep them alive in critical. They should have all of their health at this point, and this is where you have to follow through with your weapon to take out however much, whether they have 300,000 health to 400,000 health, you need to be ready to take that life bar off. If you're overcharged, it'll be really easy to follow up with another shot, but remember, they're in the dark zone. They probably have a team. You need to be ready to take out the next guy. In particular, you want to be looking for the buddy and be looking for the guy that's coming to try to get the revive, if at all possible. So, interesting thing you can do, of course, is down an agent, but don't totally kill him. Let him be the lure to get your second, third, possibly fourth kill. You should be expecting to see body shots in the 2.5 to 2.8 range just from that. If you have somebody who can somehow give you an overcharge, maybe from BTSU gloves or something like that, this is also a clutch moment where running the Acosta's go bag may be the way to really score the win, because you will be able to kick that rate of fire up. Also, if you have somebody in your team running BTSU gloves, they may be able to give the entire team a full overcharge. And so here's one other thing that I want you guys to consider. Hopefully, if I remember to do it, there will be a link up above to my ultimate support build. If you had something like this, you could get somebody running Future Initiative 4-piece that can give you an additional 15 to 25% multiplicative damage bonus on top of what you already have. They could also be running Overwatch. That will give you an additional 12% additional damage. Somebody else could possibly be running Empathic Resolve, and if you happen to get healed, this probably wouldn't be likely, but that would be up to 13, even 15% with an overcharge damage bonus right there. One of your teammates could be running Opportunistic or Perfect Opportunistic. This would add another 10 to 15% multiplicative damage to a specific target. One of your teammates could be running Standard or Perfect Sledgehammer, giving bonus damage to armor and slowing the other team. Now, as we mentioned before, damage to armor will not affect your sniper turret, but it will affect your weapon damage. And lastly, you could have somebody else running the Artificer Hive, maybe, as I alluded to, also running BTSU gloves to give you a secondary overcharge. Maybe that's the primary overcharge. Theoretically, you could be running Acosta's, they could be running BTSU, and you could also be running a weapon with Future Perfect. You could have 3 overcharges if you know how to play it right. Yeah, it's a lot of micromanagement, but, extreme is extreme, right? So overall, for safety's purposes, you may be better off running Acosta's and Kinetic Momentum in the Dark Zone. You'll do a little bit less damage than the builds that we're showcasing here. We're about to go into the range and show it off. But with this combo, you will still be able to do enough damage to single shot, body shot agents, provided you can proc the Perfect In Sync, the Perfect Combined Arms, and you have that full kinetic momentum stack, so you should be able to one-shot anybody down that way. And, that double fire rate really is going to help, because it will be able to fire off fast enough that agents are going to have a hard time getting the upper hand. All right, guys, we're about to go into the range, and you guys will see us stacking up the damage bonus. but I'm just going to go and quickly explain how we get the 20 million plus damage per shot. What we're going to do is we're going to overcharge. Waveform we will be building. While the waveform is building up, we are going to be wrapping up our capacitor times 40 stacks. This will also be proccing our perfect combined arms. So this will net us an additional 130% damage right there. And then we get our headshot, which will multiply that damage times 2.
Incoming backup request.
Strangely enough, we do see some weird damage differentials here and there. At times, the turret seems to do arbitrary damage numbers, and I can't figure out why. And one of the very interesting things that we see, and you'll see in the range here, is that we do just over 20 million damage, but the damage per bullet registers at just over 11 million. Well, if we do literally 200% damage, we would expect to see something in and above the 22 million damage range, not 20 million. So something is strange with the damage calculations and the way that it works out, but we were able to consistently get that 20 million damage mark in the range. And in the background gameplay, when we're doing Legendary Union District Arena, I was quite often to get the 15 to 18 and even 19 million damage when I could get a headshot. Alright, so this is an extremely powerful build. It does take some precise gearing. It does take some very specific actions and micromanaging to be able to do the maximum damage. But the damage output is amazing. It takes a little bit of micromanaging. And here's the thing. Do not plan your ability to get the job done based off of headshots. What we're simply doing is aiming to get the maximum amount of body damage we can. You'll notice that in Legendary, I don't take a whole lot of time aiming for the head. If we hit the head, great. It's just too much of a liability, particularly with glass cannon, to be hanging out trying to get that headshot. Just go ahead, just keep your damage ramped up, and you guys will see, I've probably already shown it, but we do a whole bunch of damage. We're just killing shit left and right, dude. We are just setting them up and knocking them down. I think that this is one of the top skill builds in the game. I think you just got to get used to playing it. And, well, to the guy who said the comment about we don't need this build, you're right. You're right. And I could see why you don't like the build. It's not nice coming around a corner in the dark zone and wondering why you're down, and boom! And just simply seeing that you got hit by a sniper turret that did 2.8 million damage to you. You know, it's, and then you go back to do something about it, and boom! Again. Anyway, I really want to thank you guys who made it all the way through the video. Hopefully you guys learned something new today. And if not, at least I was somewhat entertaining with this. Hopefully by now I have earned your guys' subscription. The best thing you can do to help my channel is to share this video. Alright, agents. Lastly, let me know what is the next comprehensive build guide that I need to get into. Well, I appreciate your agents' time. Y'all be as safe as you need to be out there. And I will catch you all in the dark zone. Peace out, agents.
Serious trauma detected. Agent incapacitated. An agent needs assistance. Agent down.
Well, shit, boys. Now it's on like Donkey Kong.
An agent needs assistance.
So in the amount of time it took me to get all three of them, one of them managed to get themselves killed again. Good job, buddy.
Immediate medical assistance needed. Agent down. An agent is no longer in your group.